Yeah, it's real cute and fun to make fun of the Big 12 and the college football playoff until you realize somehow the last couple years, the SEC has been worse. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. That is Cameron Stewart of Locked On Baylor, talking all things Bears every day of the week. We're going to start with the SEC being brutally bad. For moments on Thursday of last week, oh, Texas Tech's terrible. The Big 12 sucks. And then Alabama lost exponentially worse to Indiana, and the world realized, oh no, the SEC, when not playing itself, bad. Since 2023, current members of the SEC are 2-6 in the playoff, and the only team that's won a playoff game was Texas, who is a Big 12 team. Then NBA players in college basketball, those Baylor Bears, those BYU Cougars are doing it. Turns out those guys aren't really making a difference at all. It's kind of a non-factor. And then the transfer portal is gutting teams like Baylor or Iowa State. Even BYU has dealt with some serious issues, not just out of the portal, but due to coaching changes. If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. Cam, what if the SEC is just not the #1 conference in college football?
Blasphemy. Excommunicated from college football media. I can't even hear that. It's like that's like speaking a different language. No.
But say it slow. What if SEC bad?
Oh, like the business commission.
No.
That could be bad. I've watched It's a Wonderful Life. That could be bad.
Venezuela? Certainly that factors into there somehow. Maybe. It's clear at this point, right?
I mean, yeah. To those of us with the eyes that don't have a bunch of wool in front of it, we've seen that. And this is kind of the magnum opus. I mean, it could get worse, I guess, but like we've kind of been saying it in whispers the last couple of years. But I mean, could that not have been any more obvious on New Year's Day in the game, the granddaddy of them all, right? And Indiana puts a pounding on Alabama. You know why they did that, Drake? You know why? Because they're a better football team than Alabama.
Yeah.
Like they're flat out better in all of it than Alabama is. And that is when you finally started to hear some people saying, oh, it's kind of a down year for the SEC, huh? I see that Tennessee didn't beat anybody with a winning percentage over 500 this year. Tennessee, who was in the playoff discussion until the last couple of weeks of the season, right? That Tennessee. Baylor has a win against a team that was above 500, okay? Tennessee does not. And they just play each other every week. And they're good because the rankings at the beginning of the season, those are good. And then they play each other. And it's like, well, how can you hold that against them? They're playing this gauntlet of a schedule because we tell you it's a gauntlet of a schedule. That's why. Don't ask questions. But then, and this happened last year too. Like you said, this happened last year too. UT was the only one that won a big game last year. In the postseason, I should say. And you see it once again.
Did you say UT?
Yes,
Big
12's UT.
The team that had all Big 12 players when they went into the SEC and immediately went to the SEC championship and won the regular season?
That one.
Oh.
That one won the regular season. I mean, I guess, yeah. Technically, that's true. But you see it, and now they'll say, well, we got an SEC team in the Final Four. Yeah. Yes, because Ole Miss beat mighty Tulane, the program that all the SEC fans was way too bad to even be represented in the college football playoff, and then beat, wait for it, another SEC team.
Yeah.
Heck of a story, but they're not beating the allegations right now.
It just means more
Just means more.
Games against ourselves.
We care about.
It just means more.
We define those as the ones that we care about.
Just means more bowl losses. It just means.
Meanwhile, can I do something I never do? Can I do something I never do?
Be cynical about Baylor?
You dog. Even worse. Be positive about Texas.
Okay.
Texas played in the Citrus Bowl, and they said, yeah, we're going to play. We cut it loose. You know, they played Michigan, who's a good team. And you can say the Citrus Bowl means nothing, but you're facing another pretty good team like Michigan, blue blood program for sure. You know, Notre Dame sees a meaningless bowl against an 11-win team, and they say, oh, no, we don't want any of that. UT is like, you know what, we're going to play this, and we're not going to act like nobody cares. You know, our quarterback, who albeit is not going to the NFL draft, is going to play and have a big game. And they are the only ones kind of holding up the SEC's honor right now outside Ole Miss, who, again, beat a team that none of the SEC fans thought should be there, and a different SEC team. So a minor shout out to UT.
Credit to Texas for doing what the rest of us have always done.
For what used to happen like everywhere up till 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Like everyone used to do this, play a bowl game and care about it, and, you know, celebrate when you win. That's why they get a minor shout out here.
If I had asked any SEC fan, Greg from Hoover, Alabama, 2 weeks ago, Greg, what do Virginia, Houston, Illinois, Iowa, and Wake Forest have in common? Man, I couldn't tell you, just bad football, probably. Like they all. That's one thing.
They play football. Wake Forest, you play football.
One thing I can think of is bad football. They can't compete with the SEC. That's for sure. I'll tell you that much. Virginia,
wait till they play an SEC team.
Over Missouri, LSU falling to Houston, Illinois over Tennessee, Iowa beating Vanderbilt after Vanderbilt went on a barstool campaign about how bad they were going to beat Iowa.
Saying all we need is 7 points to beat Iowa.
And then Wake Forest dropping Mississippi State to 5-8. A gross 5-8 for the Bulldogs in the Mayo Bowl. The changing of the guard is here. And it's not the Big 12. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, the Big 12 is better than the SEC now. The Big 12, I think, in the middle of the conference is as good as the SEC. And at the top of the conference, the Big 12 can compete. I think Texas Tech competes with Georgia, or I think Texas Tech, Ole Miss. Texas Tech competes with Ole Miss. Yes. The defense just isn't great for the Rebels. And at the top of the SEC, their defenses have been more fraudulent than we expected at this point in the season, especially against each other. And so I do believe the Big 12 can compete with the SEC. It's the Big 10, though. This is the Big 10's world. Yep. The rest of us are living in it, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because you know what? They don't scream over you. They don't yell at you about how good they are. They're just like, hey, dog, let's go out there and have a really good offensive line. and Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah. There's some of that here and there, right? You remember Matt Rule's comments about like the guys, you're leaving for the Big 12, but okay.
The guys that suck. The coaches and teams that suck.
Right. And I don't think there's this myth in the Big 10 like there is in the SEC of like any team in our conference can beat anybody. You know, I think the Big 10 would readily admit the bottom is not very good. The Purdue's, they're not saying Northwestern could go beat anyone in the Big 12. They're not saying that. Actually, Northwestern had a decent year. They're not saying it about Purdue. But 2 years of 12-team football, 12-team playoff in the college football playoff, and they have had half the Final Four in both years. And both years, you could argue that it was the third best team in the Big 10 that made it to the Final Four. And that there is something to be said about that, and that their top teams have been flat out, downright, unequivocally better than the SEC teams. Like not even close. And you can go back to the last Final Four year with Michigan as well. And Washington, next year Big 10 team beating a Big 12 team in Texas. So it is the Big 10's world, whether the SEC likes it or not.
Yeah, true. Coming up, the NBA players in college basketball thing is actually just something we really got mad about, and it didn't do anything. This is Locked On Big 12. Today's show is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is exactly where I go. Take care of managing my finances. It can feel overwhelming between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep piling up, and you feel like you're losing control. You can now Track every transaction and hunt down hidden fees. Rocket Money comes in handy and saves the day. I'm shocked by what it showed me after the holidays. So I was like, oh no, I'm subscribed to 6 streaming services due to college football season. Let me cancel like 4 of those. No more hunting down customer service numbers. I can just cancel them in the Rocket Money app. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. rocketmoney.com/locked on. It's Rocket and it's money. I am appalled. I threw up all over my house. My dog subsequently threw up. My girlfriend threw up after watching BYU and Baylor play basketball because they had G League, NBA professional players, full beards, fully grown, on the court, just dropping dunks on guys that couldn't compete. They were doing alley-oops themselves between the legs, 360. They both had triple doubles. I am sick that we have ruined college basketball by giving Baylor an NBA player and BYU an NBA player. It's a conspiracy to give the religious schools a leg up to promote further religious propaganda in this country. And it happened again with these damn NBA players they're letting into my amateur college basketball.
I'm loving it. I love that this is really broke the mold. Now what you get, Drake, is players who have been paid before playing in college basketball. And to me, that's going to ruin it. I do
hold on?
love the. Yeah.
I have to stop myself usually because I remember that like my grandma listens and she doesn't get sarcasm. So she'll be like, oh, he thinks there's a religious conspiracy. That was sarcasm. Both the Baylor and BYU NBA guys, G League guys, didn't really do anything.
Someone already hit pause before that disclaimer and is commenting right now.
Yeah,
as we speak. Like we've talked about this before. Okay, I'm not comfortable with this whole thing. NBA draft picks playing in college basketball. Yeah. And now I've had to defend it a little bit, but I don't like it. I don't. But I do think it's funny that people all had this idea that like, oh, this is fair. Baylor's going to bring in this NBA draft pick, and now they're going to just be at the top of the Big 12. It's like, no, dude. No. Like, Baylor did this out of desperation. Like, they needed some more scholarship players. They needed guys who were better than walk-ons who can come and just be a warm body and play a couple of minutes for them, right? And, like, this doesn't elevate Baylor really at all. You know, James Najee has not played. He's played one game of 5-on-5 basketball in 5-6 months here, and it was Saturday against TCU. You know, he's not quite up to speed conditioning wise, probably stylistically for what Baylor's trying to do. Like, this is not going to be a guy who comes in and drops a double every game and leads them to the Final Four. Like, that's not going to happen. In fact, I don't know that this is a better team than Baylor had last year that scratched and clawed to get into the NCAA tournament. So that one does kind of tickle me. There's gonna be teams and fans that are taking victory laps the whole season because they're like, oh, we beat the NBA guys. Yeah. We beat Baylor. Like, what did James Najee do against us? And James Najee, like, is like the 5th best player on the team. You know what I mean? That's where it's going to, I think, become a bigger distraction for Baylor than they probably bargained for. Like, do you think they're going to be caught off guard by how big a distraction this is going to be? Do you think they could have foreseen that?
Well, the thing is, and this
they had to know something was coming.
Because it's not a slight to BYU, but this news broke 3 weeks prior that Abdullah Ahmed had joined the team at BYU and had played in the G League, and America was like, oh yeah, whatever.
They're like, wow, it kind of sucks, but you're right. They just it was nothing.
Baylor was the 6th school to do this. Yeah. They're like, we're just doing what everyone else is doing because it's legal. And if BYU did it and no one said a word, then whatever, we'll bring Najee on board. And Ahmed, by the way, 4 points, 11 minutes against Kansas State. He wasn't the de facto reason BYU wins by double digits on the road in a Big 12 game. Najee, 16 minutes, 5 points. Really similar stat lines, actually. Like, yeah, the guy goes in and maybe that's a piece of that. He had 4 fouls. Are the officials going to call his games differently? Is he going to get the NBA whistle now?
Maybe. That'd be interesting.
It's
a wrinkle I hadn't thought about.
Something to track, no doubt. And so, yes, that's another piece of this. I don't want the listeners of the show to think, oh, Drake and Cam don't represent the everyman, because it is, we all agree across the board, there need to be parameters that keep this from being a factor in college basketball, or at least limit this and monitor this closely. And so I just want you to be, when you, Tucker, listening in your car, go to the water cooler on Monday next week, on Thursday, and say, hey, I hate that those NBA players are ruining college basketball. The team with the most NBA players are going to win. What I want you to know is, as bad as this sounds, I need you to remember, number one, we've been bringing Yaroslav Ikabov to Purdue from the NBA of the Europe ranks for years now. You never cared. Now you care. And that these players are coming into college basketball, they're not hurting you. They're not as good as you think they are. Yeah. They're not built for what college basketball is right now. When Dan Skillings Jr., Tucker, who you've never heard of, was exponentially better for the Baylor Bears than Najee was this week.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, I don't think we as college basketball fans get pissed off about this because these players are that much better, that it's this huge unfair advantage in terms of their skills. Because is there some nominal advantage for having played professionally? Probably. Yeah. And like playing in the summer league? Sure. You know, there's probably some. But like if these guys were really better than what you've got going on in college basketball, they'd be in the NBA. Like, you know what I mean? We could talk about the G League and we could talk about Europe and the Summer League. You know what's better than all of those for development is college basketball. So if these guys were really like going to come in here and be studs of college basketball, they would have already been playing, or they would be in the NBA. Like that's what I mean. It's like it's not so much an advantage or unfair because these guys are that good. They're NBA level. It's not that. It's their eligibility and them being able to come in. It's more, I think what people have a problem with is we just got to draw a line somewhere. You know what I mean? That's the problem more so than, this guy played in the summer league, so he could step onto the Charlotte Hornets right now. You know, clearly that's not the case. And so that's where I think a lot of fans are going to see that, Drake, and they're going to go a little bit more mum to these kinds of situations. You know, they're going to be like, oh, okay, well, this guy wasn't very good, so go ahead. And then that's a problem. Then we're still not drawing a line. But yeah, I loved this idea that James Najee was going to come in and be a double machine. And here comes Baylor. Look out, Houston. I don't think that's the case.
By the way, I've watched more NBA because of the Drake Toll Show on Westwood One, because I must talk about the NBA. Jokic was injured, by the way. I don't know if you saw that.
What?
Those words in a sentence meant nothing to me a week ago. It did nothing for me. Now that I've watched more NBA, I'll say it. College basketball is so stylistically different. I don't trust that these guys can come from the G League and play right away as a monster. Case in point. That has been proven. It's been proven. The NBA and college basketball are both played pretty differently. They're called differently. They're officiated. They're
for sure.
The time is different. There are so many things that are different.
Way different.
Yeah. Tempo, pace, all of that is different. Coaching. And so I don't think this is going to be near as big of a factor as many people are blowing it out of the water to be. Coming up, what is something that should be blown out of proportion and would be almost what should be blown out of proportion, almost assuredly and accurately, is the transfer portal gutting these rosters. Locked on Big 12. Oh, baby. Drew Mestamaker, Oklahoma State. Awesome, right? One of the big wins to the Big 12 in this transfer portal. But then there's kind of like everybody else. And a couple of these teams are landing their guys, and TCU with the Harvard QB. There have been some big commitments so far. But then I look at Iowa State. who went down to 15 players left. Even Oklahoma State, who had 15 players left. Baylor, who's losing names that even I know on the roster.
Iowa State adding names that you know, by the way.
Correct.
We know 1/15th, 1/16th of the Iowa State roster.
China Spring Cougar, Tristan Exline, who's going to be a dominant factor in the Big 12 next year. Who'd have thought?
Can't wait.
And even BYU or Utah that are losing coaches, major pieces of their staff, major pieces of their roster to Michigan because of Mark Harlan's incompetence. You're the Baylor guy. We can start with Baylor here. Mm-hmm. The transfer portal is taking anybody in the mid or low tier of the Big 12, any player who has a remote name. Like, I've heard of that name, and pretty much assuring you he will go find more money to compete for a championship somewhere else.
Yeah, I would say a lot of those guys are getting that, but I'm not a big math guy, but I've seen a lot of sports and a lot of football, and the money is what the money is. About a third of the guys in college football are going into the transfer portal this year. They just continue to break records. And I just think, like, are there spots for all of these guys somewhere else? With roster spots, probably, but with the money that you have to now focus onto a certain amount of positions, like, will all these guys find a home? What is this monster that we have created here? And yeah, it's hitting the Big 12 hard because I think the Big 12 is right in the middle of it, right? It's not one in every 3 G5 guys. It's the good G5 guys, and it's not one in every 3 necessarily in the Big 10 or the SEC. They are hitting them hard a lot, but it's the best players and the ones who haven't gotten a shot. With the Big 12 and to some degree the ACC as well, it's all the ones that were good, all the ones that weren't getting enough playing time, all the ones who need a new change of scenery after 1 year and that were highly rated recruits. It's all the ones that lost their job in the middle of the season. It's the ones that won jobs in the middle of the season. It is all up and down the board when you look at the Big 12. And I go over Baylor. And we're doing all the portal stuff this week. I did the top 3 positions they needed to improve last week, Drake. Mm-hmm. And this is a 5-7 team. They could use a lot more than 3 defensive or 3 positional improvements. They need all of them now. Like they need, because with as much as they need to work on their defense, well, then their backup quarterback enters the transfer portal. And now you're down your top 2 quarterbacks from 2025. And they graduated all their wide receiver production. And, their best pass rusher enters the portal. And now you're talking about, you need to look at every position group. You need to improve pretty much everywhere. And if this stays the way that it is, the only one you kind of don't need to work on is running back. And that's a team that didn't bottom out. They didn't fire their coach. But they also weren't good. They weren't competing for championships, and they're somewhere in the middle of this conference in terms of money. So that's that being the case, there should be some stability. There's not at all.
Can I read you something?
Yeah, if you can read.
Here are the per CBS Sports, Leah Michelle, per CBS Sports, the quarterback power rankings in the Big 12 for 2025, posted in July of that same year. Number 16, Zane Flores, Oklahoma State. Number 15, McKay Hillstead, BYU.
Oh?
Yep. 14, Nico Marchiol, West Virginia. 13, Taven Jackson, UCF. 12, Caden Salter, Colorado. We didn't see all of those guys play this year for these teams consistently. 11, Noah Fafita, Arizona. 10, Connor Wegman, Houston. I'm going somewhere with this, by the way. But keep in mind. 9, Brendan Sorsby, Cincinnati. 8, Jalen Daniels, Kansas. 7, Baron Morton, Texas Tech. 6, Devin Dampier, Utah. It took me to get from 16 to 6 before I could name a quarterback that I'm sure will play once again for their Big 12. And I'm not even that sure Devin Dampier will. He can still go to Michigan. But that it took me 10 spots to get to a player that I'm like, yeah, he might be back.
He'll come back and play for this team next year.
The remaining guys, Josh Hoover, Avery Johnson, Rocco Becht, Sawyer Robertson, Sam Levitt. Levitt, gone. Robertson, gone. Becht, gone. Avery Johnson, somehow back.
Yeah.
That was
good for them.
Surprising. Hoover, gone. Dampier, we'll see. Morton, gone. Daniels, gone. Sorsby, gone. Wegman, gone. Fafita, gone. Like, whether it's portal or NFL draft, you just took America's number one quarterback league and gutted 13 or 14 of them. And Sorsby's probably still in the Big 12. But that is dramatic and aggressive, the change the Big 12 is about to see next year in the elite quarterback category.
Big time, man. That's what we hung our hat on this year. Best quarterback conference in America, whether the rest of the nation saw it or not. And that was a good selling point. It's a good selling point for this conference, and now it's all gone. I still feel like here we are in year, 4 or 5 of the portal, and I'm still trying to figure out what this looks like for the Big 12, and specifically Baylor, but the Big 12 in general. What this is this a destination? Is this a stepping stone? Is it somewhere in between? We're obviously not getting any closer to an answer when Brendan Sorsby inevitably goes from Cincinnati to Texas Tech. Is it a stepping stone or is it a destination? We're still trying to kind of figure out what that looks like for the Big 12, but it does feel like more stepping stone at this point than destination.
Which sucks.
Does suck. You can do well with it, but it does suck. Yeah.
Stepping stone versus destination. At the same time, the SEC is losing a lot of its quarterbacks too.
That's true. Yep.
And maybe this is less a conversation of the Big 12 becoming a minor league for the SEC or the Big 10, as much as it is those conferences also going through their own firestorm of losing quarterbacks who, like Carson Beck, right?
Yep.
You can't argue to me that the Big 12 is this stepping stone when quarterbacks for national championship contenders are also transferring out to see if the grass or the money is greener or because their girlfriend plays somewhere. That's going to happen anywhere, and it's happening right now in the Big 12. I mean, Cincinnati could have given Brendan Sorsby $6 million. It would have taken half their NIL to do so, but they could have given him $6 million. It's just the fact that Texas Tech can also do that. Oh, and by the way, your girlfriend plays here and we can compete for a national championship. There are Big 12 schools like BYU and Texas Tech that can do that. TCU seems to be ponying up money in this transfer portal situation. I'm not so sure that I completely subscribe to what you said. I get it, and I think that is the optic of Big 12 is just feeding the SEC. But it's kind of happening everywhere.
Well, yeah, I'm not arguing that it's going both ways. It's more so the other side of it of like, can the Big 12 outside of Texas Tech and maybe BYU be a spot that you could still develop a good quarterback for a couple of years, like we've seen recently, Noah Fafita being a big name, or be a place where already good quarterbacks or good players want to go. Mm-hmm. And we saw that with Texas Tech. We saw that for sure. But are we gonna see that from a rejuvenated Oklahoma State in a couple of years? Mm-hmm. A potentially rejuvenated TCU in a couple of years. If Kansas State gets together, rejuvenated with Colin Klein, are we going to see that in a couple of years? Where a good player at Nebraska decides to go and be a good player at Kansas State. Yeah. Like that's I think more so. Yeah, true. No, I wouldn't call it a minor league, but
that's true. What's Kansas doing? Haven't heard much out of them. Best of luck to all of you in the transfer portal. Yeah, that was interesting. Dawkins, man, it's the second time he's gotten them too.
Yeah, dude. I was gonna say they did it the first year in the league, didn't they?
Yep, they did. They did.
Dawkins get that Duke blood in him.
That's Cameron Stewart at Real Cam Stewart. This has been It Always Will Be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.